But can you imagine doing a puzzle that you didn't even know if it would come up with an image at the end, or if it would even work, or if the puzzle pieces were even fit together? Like, what? That'd be torture. That'd be horrible. It'd be just be like a weird thing to do. But like when you put a puzzle together, you already have the picture in mind, and you already have trust and faith that the picture is going to happen when you put the pieces together. And this is the same as your present moment. And your present moment is just a puzzle piece, and just put it together, put it together, put it together, put it together, and you'll paint the picture of your life.
This is Way of the Artist with Brandon Colby Cook and Evan Schulte.
Identifying your blocks and demystifying your struggles
so that you can claim your own path
and make your life a work of art.
Welcome, everybody, back to that Way of the Artist thing that we do here on occasion, on regular occasion. Thanks for joining us for this one. We've got a good one, I think, especially for, around the start of the year. This isn't right at the start of the year, but it's close enough, I think. And this one's called Abandon Your Resolutions. Because we got some thoughts on this whole resolution thing, that this resolution game that so many of us get involved with from year to year to year, which is a lot of fun. But I think that a lot of us, it's sort of a running cultural joke, of all of the resolutions that we make and how many of them we keep, or how many of them, we start out okay, and then they just sort of fall off. It's like the whole, it's an actual thing where gyms, at the start of the year, gyms are just packed with people. And then a few months in, they start to just peter out. And it's one of those things where people who are sort of regular gym goers, they're just they're always annoyed about the first couple of months because they can never get to the stuff that they want. And they're like, this will all be over in about a month and a half. I'll be back to things as usual. So we've got some things we want to share about resolutions, intentions, and some different ways of maybe the way that we're thinking about it. How do we set forth, how do we make plans, all of this sort of things, and how do we do so in a way that's more effective, more realistic, and more creative potentially. So I'll leave it there. Brandon, what have you got to open up with?
Well, I think with resolutions, it's one of those things where you actually are trying at the start of the year to do something good for yourself. You really are. And I think there's something good about that. And I think the mistake is that it's the way you're looking at what you're trying to do that's good for yourself. And if you could just switch your perspective on it, I think you resolve a lot of the problems. That's kind of the lesson that I've been kind of learning and working through on my own side of things. It's like, what's your intention for the resolution? If you look at it that way, why are you doing it? Like, what are you trying to do? Like the why is so important. And I think we get sometimes too caught up in what we're trying to do that we forget why we're trying to do it. And for example, a resolution might be like, like a very finite one might be like, I want to lose 20 pounds. Then let's say you do that in January because you go to the gym every day and, it's easy for you. You do it, whatever. Why did you do it? Why did you want to do it? I mean, that's more important than what you did. But a lot of the time, I think what happens for people is they go, this is what I'm going to do. And then they achieve it and then they stop and they forget why they did it and they don't maintain it. And the other thing is like, that's the result of what you're going to do. But then there can be the what you're going to do, like what you're actually going to do to lose weight, for example. And it's like, I'm going to work out 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a week. And that's what you're doing. And so then you're doing what you said you would do, and you do that for a while, and then your muscles are sore, or life happens, you skip a day and then it's easier to skip another. And then all of a sudden you're not going anymore. But why did you do it? And I think like this is a really important thing, because here's the thing. I think, Evan, I think the why changes. And I think that's what people don't account for. Because at first the why was for one reason. So it's like, why you want to lose the weight, but do you know why you want to keep the weight off? Might be different, maybe. Like the other thing too is like when you start getting more fit, your goals change, because now when you get fit, then you could actually start maybe putting on some muscle. You could actually make your fitness look better, which is why, regular gym goers continue to go. It's like measuring their gains, they call it, right? But it becomes about, continuing to build upon what they built already. They're not finished. It's an ongoing process. So, but why would you keep doing it? It's painful. It's uncomfortable. It's much easier to do a lot of other things. You've got to have a strong why. So a lot of these resolutions, it's like maybe you need to abandon them and then almost redo them is one way you could look at it. But I think we're going to get into a little bit more about, all this stuff. So I don't know. That's like a big thing. I just remember when I was younger and I was learning about goals, it was said to me that it's like often the why is more important than the what. And if you might say like, I want this, but then you write like an entire story about why you want it. And if you do that, then the what is much easier to accomplish and maintain and sustain and all of those other things.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of what you're pointing to is that, there needs to be bigger reasons. It's great. And there's certainly, it's worth celebrating a lot of these, little milestones along the way. But, something with, losing some arbitrary amount of weight, like, well, that doesn't, it doesn't necessarily facilitate just long-term you having a healthier lifestyle in general, right? Like it has a pretty low ceiling to it, and it can feel great for the moment, but once that moment has passed, like we adapt as people, right? Like something that, we were working towards, and suddenly it's not a big thing anymore, right?
Yeah.
And this was something that I think was at the core of our conversation prior to when we started recording here, which is that so many of, and I think that what you were bringing up with the whole why, having the why, a why that resonates with you as an individual, that you actually connect with, not a why that's, connected to some idea of from someone else or what you think you should be doing. That's kind of relates to our law of practice and discipline here. But getting back to it, we were talking about how part of the issue with resolutions and the word itself, resolution, it has this very concrete kind of meaning to it, or it's just like you are resolving that this is going to get done. And, sometimes there's a time and a place for that, but I don't know if that's always the best way. And part of that is, as we were discussing, is that with resolutions, it can become too static. We are approaching our life and trying to accomplish things as if life is a static thing, when life is not a static thing. Life is a extremely dynamic thing, as are you as an individual, as are each and every single person. It's dynamic, it's changing. And when we're pursuing something and approaching it as if it's a static thing, that it's just going to remain in place, there it is, it's locked in, I think that there's a lot of frustration that arises out of that, because part of the battle becomes just having to try and force and control things to go that way, or clinging on to something that needs to be let go of. It doesn't mean that that the journey that you set out on has ended. It just means that you have to take a different route to get there than you might have initially thought, which is where this idea of intentions, I think, is a big part of this comes into play. So I don't know, Brand, if you want to take it from there.
Well, there's a few things that came up. One is that, we make a plan when we set a resolution or a goal or whatever we're trying to do. And the plan changes, the whole thing just kind of gets thrown sideways or whatever. But like one thing that I've really realized over this last year was that my plans are not always going to go as planned. And like, I always known that, like, it's not like, it's like, this is news to me, but I was functioning with a kind of like, static plan approach. And I didn't realize I was doing it. But then when things wouldn't go the way that I wanted them to, it was like disappointing and frustrating and whatever. And then the hardest part, that wasn't actually the hard part. The hard part was not knowing how things would go in the future. And then because I didn't know how things would go, then it started to make me be like, well, what's the point of making a plan? Like, why even bother? And that I found that when you start asking those questions, the lineage of where that leads is depression. What's the point? Leads to depression. Almost always, at least for me. And I've seen that a lot in other people. So maybe you're an exception if it's not for you. But like, I find when you start asking, what's the point? You're losing purpose. You're disconnected from it. And you don't know your why. And you don't have an optimism or positivity about the future. So why would you, if you don't have a why and you don't have an optimism or positivity about the future, why would you do the hard thing? Why wouldn't you just do the fun, comfortable, easy thing, which is probably what got you overweight in the first place, which is probably what got you to not write the script that you were trying to work on, which got you to not participate in an acting class or do whatever it is that you really, truly want to do. Because like, for example, to bring this back to art, it could be like, well, what's the point? I'll never be famous. I'll never have a career as an actor. You don't know that. But in this moment for you right now, that might seem very, very real. And I'm not talking like kind of real. I mean, like you just cannot even fathom how that would work for you. So you're just out. You just feel like you're riding on empty. When you're in those positions and you're in that place and that mindset, it's tough. Like it's depressing. It's horrible, right? So we need ways to deal with this. We need ways to approach this so that we don't get taken down by the future and we don't get beaten up by the past, right? And this kind of pairs very well. I think this conversation is a nice kind of pairing with the last couple that we've had about finding purpose in the moment. I think it's so vital because you really don't know what's going to happen in the future. I mean, you might spend your whole life writing scripts and making movies or painting pictures or making music, and it never really goes to where you hoped or wished it might, or at least not yet. And that can be hard. That can be really, really hard to deal with. But you have to kind of go back to the present moment of like, do you enjoy it? Is it fun? Is it worthwhile? Is there something you can get out of just doing it? Because if you can, not only do you make the possibility of it actually working out in the future stronger and more possible, but you enjoy yourself on the way there. And that's absolutely vital to your just general well-being and health. And like, the last thing you want to do is get into the arts and then get depressed. Although artists do at times, but you don't want to stay there. It's like, and I think a lot of what we try to do in this podcast, at least what I try to do, is I have been in this like artist for so much of my life that I have gone through valleys of like sadness and anger and depression and whatever. And so I always look at them as temporary. I'm not going to be here forever. Yes, it's dark. Yes, it's bleak. Yes, it's hard, but this is a temporary visit. There's another mountain I'm about to climb, and I will come out of this. And I keep coming out of it, and I come out of it a new person, a dynamically growing, evolving artist. And that's kind of what I think, like a lot of what we're trying to do is like, as you're walking your path, it's like you're evolving on the path. The path is changing, but so are you. And you need to make resolutions and goals and intentions based on this, not on the old person you were when you started, because you're not the same person who started the journey. You're the person in the middle of the journey.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I would say even particularly over this last year, especially, planning has been, I'm one of those people where it's just like someone's like, you got a plan, have you set your goals and things like that? And it's, for most of my life, that's always just like, those have been words that have been very triggering. They just like, I've had such an aversion to all of it. And learning to have a new relationship with what that is, at least for me. And I've become more and more convinced, and this is me. I'm sure that there are people who are different, but for me, and I think for a lot of people who are in the arts and in creative fields, there's like this feeling like, that you need to have you need to be giving yourself some sense of direction, right? You need to give yourself some way of setting out here. But the whole sort of like, meticulously structured plan does not always, in fact, I would say it rarely works well with, the creative artistic process. And I've become more and more convinced that planning, what I thought it was planning, which I used to think was, okay, you need to have every step of this thing charted out. But the problem is that like you sometimes don't always know where you're going to wind up with creativity. You often don't even know what the thing that you're writing is until you're more than halfway through it. Sometimes it's not until you're through it to the end that you know what it's actually about. And then you've got to rewrite the whole damn thing, right? Like there's, and in acting too, you can have a discovery in the middle of a performance, whether that's on set or on stage in front of an audience, where you go, holy shit, I just had a discovery about something that's going on in this story, about my character, about these other characters, that changes everything. So there, you don't always know where it's always, again, it's dynamic and it's always changing. And your plan needs to be aware of that. And for me, what that means is that your plan is really just about getting out the door. For me, at least, like I need enough of a plan that gets me out the door, and heading in a direction. I've got, some supplies with me that I think that I'll need. I've got, some good boots and jacket, whatever in this metaphor that you want to add into it. But it's just to get me going. Mm-hmm. And then once I'm going, now I need to respond. And it reminds me, I was recently saying this to my latest class of actors, which is this great interview from Alan Rickman. And I've probably mentioned this once or twice on the show, but he was doing this interview and he was saying how, the notion of an actor being alone in their bedroom performing the scene is a complete farce to him, because he's like, my performance is completely incidental to the other people that I'm interacting with. How it's completely incidental to how you respond to the moment, to the other people, to what they're doing. That is where the life of your acting lives. And I find that there's lots of parallels between the world of acting and in regular, ordinary life. We need to be responsive to the things that are actually happening. Like a plan is great. A plan gets you on set. A plan gets you, coming in with something, coming in with a perspective, coming in with a direction. But how you end up, landing where you're going to land is how you respond ultimately.
I was thinking with the plan in relation to resolutions. A resolution is kind of a plan, right? It's
Yeah.
like, I'm going to resolve this. That's the plan. And I think what people don't always realize is that what you think you're resolving, what you're resolving. Like, people think, and I'm not saying like people, I'm like everybody, we're all like, we all fall victim to this to some degree, if you want to look at it that way. But it's like you think that by making a bunch of money, for example, that you're going to resolve something. And then what you end up finding out is that you do this thing, you actually achieve it and you accomplish it, and it doesn't resolve it. And so that can be like kind of frustrating because maybe you worked really hard to do that. Everything's a science experiment to some degree. It's like you got to like look at it in terms of, I think that this is going to solve my problem, so I'm going to try and do it. And then you go and you do it, and if it doesn't resolve your problem, you go, oh, okay, well, it didn't, so maybe this will resolve my problem. And you go, you try that, you do this, right? And like a lot of people, they make excuses in their life, and and they never had anybody like kind of give them any guidance or help them figure it out. And maybe they just don't have enough life experience, but like you make excuses. You say, well, like, I can't find the person who I'm meant to be with because I'm too overweight, or I don't have enough money, or blah, 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 blah. You have some reason, right? But you don't realize you made that up. You tried to take data from outside the world and you tried to like piece it together and pair it to yourself, and then go, okay, so then you go and resolve your thing. You go lose a bunch of weight, make a bunch of money, whatever the hell it is, right? Dress better, be funnier, I don't know. And you find out that you went and did that and it didn't work, and then it's disappointing because you're like, well, I thought that was it. But you got to look at it in terms of like, okay, well, everything is trial and error. So that's why the why is so important. Why did you do it? I mean, maybe like if you're looking for to kind of make this more clear, if you're looking for someone and you think they're going to like you for superficial reasons, or at least you're going to attract them through superficial things, then you're going to probably do things like you're going to try to dress well. You're going to try to like get yourself really fit. You're going to try to make money. You're going to try to be popular. You're going to, those are all external things you're trying to do. And maybe you're trying to attract the love of your life doing this stuff. Right. So, but what you end up doing is you do all these things and you end up attracting a very superficial type of person, someone that likes you for, superficial qualities. And so it takes a certain level of depth for you to realize, well, wait a minute, like I'm trying to get someone to like me for superficial reasons. And so then you have to go deeper. And then you might start to find out that it's like, what if somebody liked you, and maybe you don't even believe it's possible, but they liked you because of your authenticity, your honesty, your ability to just do things with passion, whatever it might be. You need to kind of almost get through your superficial barriers that are actually just a projection of you, and do that dance, spin those plates, to realize that those aren't the plates you need to spin. But sometimes you have to do something before you can prove to yourself that it isn't true. I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm kind of speaking for myself to some degree. I mean, this is like the story of my life, right? I used to think, hey, people will like me if I have something to offer them, if I look good, if I dress well, if I'm funny. And I did the dance. And what it did was it did attract people. It does work, but it doesn't necessarily attract who you want to your life. But I had to kind of do it so I could realize that like, that's not really what I have to bring to the world. And, and we all work through our own thing, but I mean, this is the thing. It's like you're trying stuff and you're learning. And I think like, just to finish my point, I wanted to bring people into my life, but I wanted to actually bring real friendships and real love and real connection, which dressing well, being successful, having money, being funny, being popular doesn't necessarily bring you depth. And so I had to go and do a very superficial, like resolutions, goals, and activities to realize, okay, I know how to attract people, but is it attracting the right type of people? And like Evan, I mean, I'll say one last thing. You taught me something, and if you and a few other people, but you guys taught me something, um, because you guys actually, you're one of the people in my life, at least, who like valued me for just who I was as a person. And like up until, I mean, maybe like 10, a little less years ago, I was like, I didn't even realize that was really an option. Like, it's kind of weird, you know? It's like, I actually really thought I had to do a dance to make people like me. And then finding out that people would like me just because I was just real and authentic was like a kind of a surprise to me. But I had to go through the whole dance to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you're something that's been dawning on me. I haven't really thought of it, which is interesting. And I'm sure there's probably people out there who have already figured this one out. But even I'm just thinking about the word itself, the words resolve or resolution. It's re and solve, re and solution, implying that you're at this again.
Yeah, totally. That's
you know, there's
point.
like there's like there's like an implied you've already failed at this before, you know, that's involved with it.
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna resolve it. I'm gonna try to. That's exactly it.
And I'll put an end to it once and for all. And again, this comes down to this static thing. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna lose that 20 pounds. Not a good resolution, right? Because it's like, it's, as we were saying, it's too static. It's not dynamic enough. It doesn't reach far enough into your life. So what do you really want? You want to feel good about your health. You know, that's really maybe what it comes down to for a lot of people. It's like, you want to feel good about your health. You want to feel good about your body. All right, well then resolve, set the intention that you're going to do things that make you feel good about your body. And the thing is that when you it's still maybe a little bit general, but it gets you, in at least in my mind, in the right ballpark of where we want to go. That's maybe a little bit more creative for you in your life, helps you to be more creative in your life, because now it's like, okay, so maybe some of that includes exercising a bit more. You know, maybe it's going to the gym sometimes, but maybe it's getting out for a hike. Maybe it's doing something, some other physical activity that you really enjoy. Okay, great. And you're doing that consistently. And then maybe it comes to a time where it's just like, okay, you know what? I'm eating too much sugar. You know, I want to cut out some sugar and start eating some more vegetables, right? Because when you start getting stuck, especially when you set some arbitrary goal like a weight, now it's just like, it's an obsession with the scale. You know, like your whole life is now just revolving around that thing, as opposed to expanding into a more like creative approach to your health, right? Which could mean any number of things for you at any given moment, right? Really listening to what it is that you actually want, what it is that you actually need. You know, like the weight, I don't have a scale in my house, you know, and like I've been blessed with good genes up to this point in my life where it's like, you know, I've always been a fairly trim person, but that in itself has presented issues to me in my life where I felt like, oh, I'm too small, I'm too skinny, I'm too, you know, and the scale was a thing that just still didn't make me feel good about myself. So I don't have one. I don't have one in the house because to me it doesn't mean anything ultimately. Really, it comes down to a gauge of like, how do I feel about where I'm at? And it's like, you know what? I feel like I'm, you know, some of my strength. Like I feel like I've let some of my strength go. So I want to start incorporating a few things to build up, you know, some muscles again, right? Just some things like that. But it's a dynamic thing, right? Like it's something that, you know, you have to pay attention to, and it's something, but it goes to the root. And I think that that's part of where the resolutions fail so often, and why we're saying abandon your resolutions, is because they just, for the most part, they don't go deep enough.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, maybe we want to go into this thing of intentions, because I know we were talking a little bit about how intentions are perhaps a better way of looking at it, as to, you know, start of a new year, like, hey, I'm all for, hey, the beginning of a new year, there's that sense of a fresh start that kind of, you know, comes to each and every one of us. And it's a good time to set some things in motion. You know, it's a good time to think about, you know, what you want to do in your life. Right. But, let's do it in ways that are actually meaningful.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, we're talking about this whole abandon your resolutions, replace them with intentions. And you look at it in terms of intention has I think a why involved in it. Like, why are you intending to do this? You know, like, and even more than a goal. Because a goal, if you look at it, a goal is just a measurement. I mean, pick any goal. You do it, and all it does is it's like a milestone. It's like a point where you can kind of go, okay, like I got there, and now I can set another goal. And goals are endless. And I think there's a few things to really think about. One is that we need to, if you've learned this bad habit, and it is a bad habit, and it's a faulty perception that you're ever complete, like, just get rid of that one. You're never going to be complete. It's never going to be done until you die. And then you're over. Then who cares? It's over. You know, it doesn't matter. So, like, this whole idea that you somehow finish and that you can, like, take the foot off the gas and you can just, like, relax. Like, look, if you want to relax, relax. Like, if that's what you want to do, do it. But, like, you're not going to want to relax forever. I can promise you that, because the feeling that comes with that is lethargic, and it doesn't feel good after a while, you know? So there's never an end. It's always changing. It's always dynamic. It's always evolving. So the sooner that you accept that and you look at things as momentary, you go, like, I want to play now. I want to relax now. I want to work now. Like, it becomes I'm doing this now. You know, like, when you do what you love, work is fun. So, like, if you don't like your work, you're not doing what you love. That's the problem, you know? So your relationship to everything is the issue. I mean, I think that's a big part of that comes up. And, like, if you look at things in terms of, like, I'm going to climb a mountain. Like, I hike a lot. I'm going to climb this mountain. I'm not going to climb this mountain every time. I'm not going to stay on this mountain. I'm not going to live up here. I'm going to come back down the mountain, and I'm going to climb another mountain. You know what I mean? Like, life's like that. You do the thing. And sometimes it's like, well, why are you even climbing the mountain? Why are you doing it? Because I like climbing mountains. So there's the joy of actually going up the mountain. I was thinking about this the other day, Evan. I used to go on this one hike. It's called Diaz Vista, 10 Views. And it's like, you hike, and it's so hard at the first part of it. Well, at least the part that I went up. There's this really hard part you can choose to go up, and it gets you right up to the top of the peaks right away. And then you walk along the edge of this mountain for 10 views. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I used to push myself through this really, really hard part. And then I would just walk along the 10 views, and I'd just enjoy the day, and I'd stop at a view, and I'd enjoy the walk from one view to the next. And then eventually I would get to the part where you kind of come down the mountain. It's real easy. And I was thinking about why do I do that? I'm like, well, I like it. It's fun, and it's freeing, and there's fresh air, and I got to think, and I got to be creative. And so it's not really about hiking. It's about enjoying myself. It's about having fresh air and being creative and being free and being on my own. And, you know, I used to bring my dog up there, and my dog would, like, run way up ahead of me and then run back and then run way up ahead of me and run back, and just loved it, you know? And I loved that she loved it, you know? And life doesn't have to be this thing where, like, your meaning doesn't have to be some deep, like, profound, like, I'm changing the world. It can just be because you enjoy it, and you enjoy having 20 less pounds on your body or whatever. or X amount of money in your bank account. Like one thing I've learned as I've gotten older is I like just having money in my bank account. I like the feeling of having it there. Like I like having cash in my safe. I just like having it because it gives me a sense that I have resources available in case I have movability, and that feeling. I don't even care about the money. The money almost means nothing. It's what the money does. It makes me feel like I have options, and I like the feeling of having options. So I could give two shits about the money. So if it was like money wasn't our currency, I would use something else. But I developed a relationship with having a little on hand. You know what I mean? It's nice. So, I mean, the way I look at it is like, if we look at our intention a little differently, we look at our resolutions a little differently, you know? And yeah, I mean, maybe you are resolving it and resolving it over and over, but like, don't worry about being finished, try to just like, look at it like a ride. And how do you want to ride?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I've been looking at it more in this stage of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something that you said that reminded me of a quote that I came across recently, from Mother Teresa, no less.
Okay.
She said, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love."
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know, something about what you said just reminded me of that. And I was just like, yeah, I like that one. I like it.
It'll sure make life a lot easier if you do.
Yeah, and then in a weird way, like, being great kind of becomes unimportant. Like when you're just living a life of great love in everything that you're doing. When like, that is a great life to me. I think I think she knowingly is probably why she said that, right? Which is like, look, that is a great life, is the twist on that whole thing. It is a great thing to live your life that way. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
where do we want to go with this one now?
Well, okay, I would say this, like, maybe you're listening to this podcast and it's the start of the year, and maybe you made some resolutions. So your resolutions, I'd say my advice on that, if I had any, would be like, go deeper. Like, why did you do them? Why did you like figure out what's behind them? And something that I've learned over this last year specifically, and really at the end, like all that conversation, the last two podcasts we had might be good things to listen to if you're listening to this and this is resonating with you. But life is happening now. I mean, you can only say that so many times in so many ways, but it's like happening now. So there's this past version of you and this future projection of you, and both are not really real. They're just things that you've pieced together. And I would say, like, you gotta like let go of the past as much as you do the future, and like try and be right now, and look at it in terms of everything that you want, everything that you dream of, every intention that you have, they're all happening right now. And I know this is hard to wrap your head around because I had so much trouble doing it myself. I know it can be super challenging, but it's all happening right now. Everything is happening right now. And this is good news, because what it means is that everything that you want, you either believe you have it now or you believe you don't. So it's about gratitude and appreciation in this moment. Because what I've learned about goals and ambition and just direction and whatever, like when I was climbing that mountain, Dias Vistas, I was already at the top of it when I started at the bottom. There was never a part in my mind where it wasn't going to happen. It was just a matter of me climbing the mountain. So like when I was climbing it, I was already grateful for what the top would be like. And when you come at things from that perspective, the pain of doing the climb, the hardship of that becomes kind of joyful, because it's like, yeah, I just got to keep moving up the mountain and I'm going to get there and I'm going to have it and it's all going to be great. So like, if you wait until you get to the top of the mountain, you're going to suffer all the way there. If you even get to the top of the mountain, then the suffering is going to be brutal. So I don't know what it is that you might want. Maybe you want to write a script, or maybe paint a painting, or make a song, or make an album, or do whatever the heck it is that you want to do, start a business. I don't know. But you got to see it as though it has already happened and you're appreciative of it already happening. And now all you're doing is just simply like the puzzle is already designed. You're just putting the pieces together to fill in the picture. That's all you're doing. And when you look at it that way, the puzzle becomes an enjoyable thing. But can you imagine doing a puzzle that you didn't even know if it would come up with an image at the end, or if it would even work, or if the puzzle pieces were even fit together? Like, what? That'd be torture. That'd be horrible. It'd be like a weird thing to do. But like, when you put a puzzle together, you already have the picture in mind, and you already have trust and faith that the picture is going to happen when you put the pieces together. And this is the same as your present moment. And your present moment is just a puzzle piece, and just put it together, put it together, put it together, put it together, and you'll paint the picture of your life. And like, if you give in to some shitty version of your life where you're overweight and unsuccessful and none of your dreams have come true, and you just keep building that puzzle, what do you think picture you're going to build? That's already a reality if you keep building that picture, So and here's another thing, and I'll just say one last thing about this. Maybe you only believe the shitty picture is real for you. That's okay. Forgive yourself, forgive yourself for not being able to see the brighter picture yet. But like, here's the question. Are you somebody who just gives up? Because if you are, you get the shitty picture. But if you have a little bit of fight in you, if you have a little bit of a spark, man, if you have a little bit of something, that bright picture that you don't even know is possible, it's waiting for you. And something like I'm really good at starting a fire, and I've something, we have a stove here where I'm at, and I start a fire every day. And something I've learned about fires, which I think is a very great wisdom for this very topic, is that the wisdom is this: a fire that looks like it's out needs just a spark. And you would not believe what a little bit of wind, a little bit of breath can blow into a spark, and you can watch an entire like set of logs and timber and whatever just go up. And it's so cool. It's so beautiful. It's so like, if you have a spark in you that you just like, this little bit of creativity, this little bit of something, this little bit of hope, this little bit of whatever, I'm telling you, it's enough. And you have no idea. You could just light it all up. And when you light it all up, it's all easy. But like in those initial parts where it looks like it's out and it looks like you got nothing and everything feels damp, it's like, yeah, it's super hard. I get it. But remember, that's temporary, like I said earlier. And you just need a little bit, a little bit of something. Man, who knows? Who knows what that fire looks like for you, that picture looks like for you.
Hey everybody, this is Evan, and this episode is brought to you by my book. Yes, I recently released a book called The Actor's Awakening, Connecting Spirituality to Craft. Expand yourself as an actor and your craft through a spiritual perspective. Take a journey that will explore universal philosophies and insights to help you understand human nature in a profound way, and develop practices to take your work to another level. Again, that's The Actor's Awakening, Connecting Spirituality to Craft, available on Kindle and paperback on Amazon. And as always, if you like the show, please subscribe.
Mm-hmm.
I like the metaphor. I like the metaphor, Brandon. That's a good one. That's a good one. I've been well versed with dealing with the fireplace these days myself, and know that to be very true. Um, yeah, I this conversation has been interesting. It's been making me think about, because I didn't really this for a few years I haven't really set resolutions. Um, I just sort of felt like, I don't know, I don't really see what exactly the point is, and I've switched to something more like like what's an intention, what is something that um for the year. And I think, I think that we forget how powerful an intention can be. um and again, I want to just put a message out there once more time, but it's once more time, one more
Once more
time.
time. Yeah. Glad you caught it. Somebody's going, what?
Yeah. What? No, I caught it. It's just like, what was that? But intention does matter. There are individuals today who don't think intention matters, but it does. It matters very much, and it is a very powerful thing. And I think that we forget about how powerful intention is. Yes, intention doesn't always it doesn't always manifest itself in a result that we necessarily want or expect. But more often than not, intentions lead us somewhere to where we need to go. They lead us somewhere to what we were asking for, and what it brings us somewhere. So I think that just reiterating that, but yeah, also for myself, I've been thinking, I haven't really set much of an intention for myself this year, but I'm re-examining it just based on this conversation. I started this year out with a challenge, and it's I knew I was going to do this challenge last month in December. I think I may have even mentioned it on the show, but I am on day 5 of 30 songs in 30 days, which is I'm writing 30 songs in 30 days. I've written a handful of songs in my life. I've been playing guitar for a long time. And it's just something I felt inspired to do. And I was like, okay, I'm going to set up a creative challenge for myself. But now I'm looking at this like, well, what is that really all about? What is the 30 songs in 30 days? And it can be good to set a specific goal like that for yourself, but I'm connecting with it on a level which I did intuitively know, but it's because I'm like, well, because I've want to be a better songwriter. It's music is something that I have a deep connection to, and it's a way I'm always wanting to improve my skills, improve my knowledge. And this is something that feeds into that. So I guess my intention this year is to, become more of an artist within music than I have before. So it's just, as we've been saying, it's going deeper with what it is that you're doing. Like, there's maybe a way in which you can look at a resolution that you have set out for yourself this year and see, it's like, okay, how is that just the tip of the iceberg? How is that, not really the thing that's holding that thing up out of the water? It doesn't mean, you have to abandon it, as we've been saying in this title, but it means it's like, what's the bigger thing underneath why you're doing it? As you said at the beginning of this conversation, Brandon, like, what's the why that necessitates that resolution, right? Because that's more of what we need to be connected with.
All the motivation is in the why. If you don't know the why, the motivation it's fleeting and it's going to be gone, and there's nothing to hold it together. I mean, and the why changes. I think this is an important thing to remember, is like, I've written this year, as long as I keep doing this every day, this year I'm going to have written for 10 days every year, like 10 years. I've written every holy wow.
Yeah. Oh, written
Holy
for 10
wow,
days. Oh, wow.
Evan. I will have written for 10 years in a row every single day for half an hour a day. And like I've written so much now that like I'm just like, am I ever going to go through any of this content that I wrote? It's going to be, there's so much. There's so much writing that it's been done. And I know that my writing has gotten better because like I've written letters and I've done things where it's like, wow, like I'm like, my writing is getting, like my writing is very strong and it's very clear and it's organized and I have a way of communicating my thoughts. I actually wrote a letter. Here's a story. This is interesting. This was a few years ago, but I wrote a letter and it was like a legal thing. And I'm not a lawyer, but I wrote it out. And people said, your letter was so well articulated, like you should be a lawyer. Like they were basically like the way you wrote this. Because there's something that happens when you do something like every day and you do it. But here's my point is I have gotten better as a writer, but my reasons for being better as a writer has changed over 10 years. Initially why I did it and then why I continued to do it partway through. It's evolved and it's changed and it's just, it's hard to stay with something for that long and have the same reasons in the beginning because quite honestly, I feel like my initial reasons I achieved those. So then why keep writing? Why even bother? And you kind of have to like up the ante or change it or like figure out like what's going on for you. Like, why do you keep doing this? And I've had a few moments, like I'll be straight with you. Like, I'm like, why the hell am I doing this? Like, this is pointless. Like, why even bother? Like, I don't want to do this. And there's days where I've like done a whole day like maybe I've even been on set and it's like 16, 18-hour day and I get home and all I want to do is go to sleep because I got to get up the next day and I only have a 6-hour, like 7-hour turnaround. I've had that. And I do my writing and it's painful. It's just painful. And I don't want to write. I just want to go to sleep. I'm tired and I'm stressing about the next day. And I don't even want to take half an hour out of doing that because there's other things I want to do. You got to have a strong why to push through that. But there's something about it. Like if you keep evolving your why, if you keep adapting it, you keep changing, you keep improvising, you find things in yourself that are really incredible. And Evan, if I can go back to our fire analogy, because there was one last thing, I feel like this actually relates to it quite well. I was saying earlier that it takes only a spark to light a fire. But when you lit a fire and the first set of logs have burned down and you're putting on new ones, you have embers. And embers are 1,000 times better than a spark because embers are like having a whole flooring of sparks. And then when you blow on the embers and all the embers light up, and then all of a sudden all the logs above it can just get caught on fire or whatever you put, that is like powerful. And I feel like with my writing is just full of embers now. It's all embers. So really like even when I'm out of creativity, I got so much of a base work of inspiration that's just there resting on the floor of this that even if I have no flame at all going, it's so easy to just blow life into it and just have it just catch. So maybe you're working on your acting, maybe you're working on your fitness, maybe you're just working on trying to find a relationship. The way I would look at it is like every time you continually put effort into this and you're building embers, you're building something that can catch, and it just makes life easier, And so maybe that's why you're doing it. Maybe you're just making it, like they say, making your first million is the hardest, but making your second million is like very easy because the first million is so hard to figure out how to do. But the second million, you've already learned all the strategies to make a million. You know what I mean? And so like, maybe if you're going to like figure out your resolutions this year, you're going to like abandon them and revisit them and do whatever you're going to do, maybe look at it in terms of like, what embers do I want to build? Like, what do I want to do to make my life easier? if you write 30 songs in 30 days, man, I mean, the amount of embers that you're going to build for yourself in writing music, it's like those things are probably not going to go out for a very long time. So it's a great thing. And like you might not come up with a great song in 30 days, but you will have built the embers to potentially come up with a great song. But who knows? Maybe in 30 days you will come up with a great song. Maybe you'll come up with more than one. Maybe you already have. You don't know. But this is the fun, right? This is the
well, yeah, I mean, I could tell you right now that on day 5, I haven't. I think they're pretty much, most of them are garbage, but that was part of it. I'm like, I want to write some garbage. I want to get the garbage out because, taking some inspiration from, watching that Beatles documentary that came out a while ago. It's just like, wow, like they wrote just hundreds of songs that no one will hear because they're like, none of them were good enough. And just learning to develop sensibilities. But the thing that's interesting is that I can't say exactly what it is, but with each song already at this point, I feel like I'm learning something about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and how a song, I can't tell you exactly what that is, but I'm just like, okay, and that's really, I mean, I don't know what's going to come out of it really ultimately at the end of the 30 days, but I know I'll have learned something. I know I'll have learned something. And that was really the goal. It was, let's see what there is to learn just with kind of pushing yourself to just do this and just do this every day and allow yourself to write something that's terrible. Because the thing is that there's actually within each one, even though overall they're mostly terrible, there's usually something within each one that is great. There's a little piece of, there's, a couple of lyrics that I'm like, oh, there's something to those lyrics, or there's a melody that is like, oh, that's a nice little, transition. That's a nice little change right there. And the rest of it is garbage. But the thing is like, okay, there's something that I've learned, or maybe there's an idea in the lyrics that can be explored later on. Right. But, it's an interesting process, and you have no idea what's going to come out of it. Cause really my intention, my goal is to just come out with stronger, songwriting sensibilities, have a stronger sense of how to write and compose a song that's good. Maybe not great, but that isn't terrible. It's maybe, the what I'm setting out for here.
Well, I mean, there's, I would say even like there's no, if you put the intention out there that you want to write a great song, it really is a matter of time and effort ultimately. But I would, something we talked about before we got into this podcast, which I think is worth mentioning, is that, the dynamic target, right? The changing, moving target is something that people don't always factor into their plans. Like if you want to write a movie, you might come up with a great concept, but if you don't act on it, like it might become stale and old. What is new one day can be stale and old another day. So, there's a certain amount of like, you got to like look at things in terms of, if your target is stagnant, if it means not moving, it's just positioned and it just is what it is, then it's only a matter of time. If you put effort and energy into it, it's only a matter of time and effort and energy before you achieve it. That is very basic and very simple. The problem is that a lot of our goals and real ambitions and dreams are not stagnant. So they're moving. And we need to look at them in terms of they must not outpace us. We must outpace them. You're the lion and the gazelle with your dream, and you are the lion and your dream is the gazelle. And if the gazelle is going to outrun you, you will never get a meal. You'll die. You will starve. in the Serengeti, so to speak, right? So it's like you either have to be smarter about it, meaning that your approach needs to be different, or you need to outpace it. And one thing that's kind of interesting about the gazelle and the cheetah is that the cheetah's fast and the gazelle is fast. And if the gazelle and the cheetah start with the gazelle being too aware of the cheetah doesn't really stand a chance because it's not quite fast enough to close the gap. Not all, sometimes maybe, but not always, mostly not. What the cheetah needs to do is it needs to be smarter. It needs to get closer to the gazelle. It needs to position itself better. And then when the start happens, then it has a chance to gain on it because it's really only a small amount of gain. So like what I'm saying is that you might have a goal, but if your positioning towards your goal is not good, you need to be more intelligent about your positioning. To give a real world example, let's say you want to date somebody. If you come at it straight on, you're not dressed well, you haven't taken care of yourself, you didn't wake up in this morning with you didn't put a good intention in the morning, you're in a bad mood, you're depressed, you haven't taken care of your business, you didn't, all this stuff that you just have not done. Now you're going to go up to this person, you're going to approach them and whatever. I'm just giving you an example. I mean, I should be a fucking dating coach these days, but you're going to go approach them and you haven't done any of the preparation work you needed to be in the right position to be able to make this even possible. Your hair's a mess, all this stuff. It might work. It might happen, but you've really started at a disadvantage. So, it's in your best interest to start the morning, to start the day with preparation as though if the opportunity comes, if the gazelle, if the dream, if the door opens, if the thing happens, that you are prepared and ready and you have everything in place and in line to give yourself the best opportunity to walk through that door or capture that gazelle, however analogy you want to look at it. And you still might not get it. And you just have to accept that that's the game of nature, that even when you've done everything right, it might be even 9 out of 10 times you fail at doing everything right, but it's probably 100 out of 100, where you're going to succeed if you do everything wrong. So yeah, you might not succeed, but you've cut your odds down. You've made it better. So, approaching whatever it is that you're trying to do, like, the intention begins before the thing ever even appears before your eyes. So like I write every day, not because every day I'm writing the script or the masterpiece or the project that is going to be the big thing that I write in my lifetime, but every day is preparing me and I'm ready. I'm ready for if, and not just if, but when the opportunity comes or the time comes where I'm ready to share and put this thing out there, that I will have the best opportunity possible. And that's all I can control, because I don't know if it's ever going to work, but I can put myself in that position. Right. And that's kind of the thing, like that's the intention, and I think like the target, it's like I'm chasing a very challenging target to some degree with what I want to do. Like if I was to really just share my goals and my dreams, I mean, they're ambitious, they're out there, but it's like position yourself, put yourself in the spot where you have a chance, And that's, I think, betting on yourself, because at the end of the day, I think everything is a gamble, dating the person you really want to date, not the person you settle for, going for the thing you really want to go for. All of this stuff is a gamble. You got to bet on yourself. And the only way to do it is to increase the odds. Just make the odds better, make them in your favor as much as you possibly can, and you have a fighting chance, and if you flip the coin enough, you're going to get the one you want, you know? And if you can make it 50-50 odds, man, I mean, your chances are great, you know, but most of the time, if you can count on 10% odds and you can be okay with that, man, you could do anything. Like here's things I'm going to say, Evan, and I stand by this. I absolutely stand by this. If you can on your life be okay with 10% odds of winning, even 5%, but if you could be okay with that, you could do anything in this world. And I mean that because if you're doing a business, if you're willing to call 10 people, the chances of you getting an opportunity out of one of those calls is so high that that's a 10% success rate. If you can do that, if you can accept 90% failure, 10% success, you could probably do just about anything you wanted in your life. So the problem is that we often believe we have to have better than 50% odds, better than 90% odds. And it's a bad way to look at life. Look at life in terms of, look, I'm going to set myself up and do the best I can. And if I can get myself 10% odds, if I can do all the prep work to get myself 10% odds, man, that's only 10 tries. 10 tries at whatever you're trying to do. That's incredibly good odds for your dreams, you know, for what matters. So that's
well, you know, it's like a few things that are coming for me is like, who is the person that you want to be? Who's the person that you want to be, and what are the intentions that nourish that? What are the intentions that you can think of that will nourish that person that you want to be? You know, really is what's coming up, because it's like a lot of what we've been saying and what you're bringing up, you know, comes back to this whole thing of, you know, where again I'm more and more convinced that a plan is the thing to get you out the door. And to get you out the door in a place where you are in a spot of strength and nourishment, as I've been saying, you know, like you're in a good place. You're able to respond. You're able to, you know, react intelligently to all of the things that pop up, the unexpected things, and some of them will be expected things, right? But probably more unexpected than expected is often the case. So it's like, you know, it's about all of these little things. You hear athletes say this all the time, right? It's just like, it's taking care of the little things. You know, you just take care of the little things, you take care of the little things. And when you can get focused on that, often that's when the wins start coming in. That's when things start going your way, is when you're just taking care of the little things, putting your attention on those. I think that's where, again, a lot of what we're, you know, I feel like we've kind of covered a lot of ground here, and we're circling back on things. But yeah, I think that's really, again, part of this conversation that we've been having, which is like, you know, the way that we set out about what we want to do in our lives, things that we want to achieve, has to be ingrained with where we are right now. You know, it has to be connected to where we are right now, not something in the distance, but like somewhere that we are now, somewhere that we are going to be, and somewhere that we strive to continue. You know, something that we can evolve with, something that we can that will grow with us, as opposed to just like, okay, the goal is to win the game. Yeah, the goal is to win the game, but how are you going to win the game? You got to do the little things, right? That means winning that battle in the corner, you know, against that person. That means, you know, making that nice clean pass to, you know, to your teammate. That means, you know, holding, making sure that you're in position when things are coming back against you, right? Like whatever it is, it's the little things, the little things. And then those wins pile up. When you take care of the little things, the big things start to sort themselves out, right? And so it's just about I guess it's really about grounding those intentions into the present moment for us, right? In a living way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally.
I hope that made sense. I felt like I was a little all over the place, but do you want to say something, or should we do a quick beer break?
I want to say one quick thing about Suber.
All right.
I'll say this. Your target of whatever you're after is elusive if it matters. If it's beyond you, it's elusive because you don't know where it is all the time. It's one of those things where you think you know where it is and you don't always know where it is. And so you got to look at it in terms of like when you're after some bigger things that you have no guidance, no experience, and like nobody's there helping you figure out wherever it is that you're, the target. Like if you knew where the target was, if you knew exactly what you had to do, you'd do it, But most of us are working with a target that's not only moving, but it's in the dark and we can't see it half the time. And then when we do see it, it's not easy to hit, and we're all working with that when we're trying to push beyond what's normal and usual and common. And so you got to be sharp. You got to be on the ball. You got to be present, and you got to be willing to improvise and go with the unexpected. So resolutions are fine as a starting point, but then you abandon them because the moment that you get a little bit of information, they all change. Because whatever you thought you were after was stagnant when you first thought about it. And then you see it and it's moving in a different way than you thought, or it's moving at all and you didn't expect that. And then you move with it and you adapt with it. And then you go with it. And then you lose sight of it. And then you catch it again, and it's this constant kind of, and then you hit it and you get it and it's done. And then all of a sudden the new target pops up and it's all the same thing over again. And when you start to embrace the game of like being able to work with it, dance with it, play with it, improvise with it, like this is like everything. This is the artistry, like acting is like this. You go into a scene, you think you know the target, you think you know what you're after as an actor. All of a sudden your scene partner does something totally different, totally surprising, totally a different way. You got to improvise, you got to adapt, you got to move with it. That takes you into something else. Now you're over here. You didn't expect to be over here. You thought you'd be over there when you were doing the scene. And now you're there. And so you have to work with that and deal with that. And life is like this. It's this moving, evolving thing. So don't treat yourself and your goals and your dreams and your ambitions and your resolutions and your intentions as like they're just this stagnant, straightforward thing. I just say like and kind of like have fun being somebody that can keep up with it. Have fun being somebody that can like move and play the game, and life's interesting. You're shooting a movie and then you have a scene all locked down and they promised you the location, and this has happened to me. And then all of a sudden the day of or the day before they say, sorry, you can't shoot here. Whatever. You're indie filmmaker, you move with it, adapt with it, play with it. Sometimes it might work out better than you think, just roll with it. Learn to take these things as like an ongoing dynamic. You're changing and it's changing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of like the message that I think we're sharing, but also like we're reiterating for each other. It's like, this is art, man. Art is so exciting because it's so dynamic. It's just so.
Well, I think that just like picking up a little bit from what you're saying is that it's like, so often the thing that actually happens is more interesting than the idea that you had in your head, which is part of where this whole intention thing is. Like, set yourself out, set yourself in that direction, have something in mind, but like be prepared to abandon it, because often the thing that happens is so much better.
Yeah.
Like we're limited. I think you were saying this before we started recording, but like we are so limited as individuals, even as groups, like in terms of our perspective, what we can see, what we can predict, what we can, like we have limitations. And when we move in with the flow of life a little bit better, we leave room for something better to enter, than we could even have, beyond what we could have thought of. So
I think that's the key point, man. I think we make room for something better than what we even imagined. Yeah, and I think that if you open yourself up for that, that's kind of the big win, is that your dream is really only a small perception of what could happen. You just don't know. It's so much more robust than what you realize. And so just be open to it, Yeah.
For sure. All right.
Okay.
Let's talk about some beer. I'll go first. I'm drinking one from Spectrum Beer Company. I don't know if I've ever had anything from them before. This is an Irish cream and coffee ale. And it's interesting. It's interesting. I was expecting it, like it's a kind of just like a cloudy blonde beer. I was expecting it to come out a bit darker than this, but it's light looking, but it has a very caramelly kind of a taste, which I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it. It's a little strong for me on that front, but it's been an interesting drink over this conversation.
Right on. Well, I'm having a new one from a company or a brewery that I've never had a beer from. They're called Sawback Brewing Company. And this one is a hazy blonde ale. And it's been pretty good, I have to say. This is their origin's Red Deer River. I'm pretty sure they're in Red Deer. Yeah. Which is it's been good. I have a few of their beers. I actually got a bunch of their beers, so probably for the next few episodes, most likely I'm gonna have a couple more from them. But so far out of the gate, Sawback, you guys are doing pretty good with this nice. Hazy blonde ale. So that's what I've been sipping at today, and it's been nice. I mean, it's a little hoppy, I suppose, not too hoppy, but it's been going down real easy. And I feel like it's one of those drinks that, like, it's one of those beers where it's like you could just have a few of them and back to back and feel pretty good about it. And for an IPA, I think that's pretty strong recommendation, because I find with IPAs, a lot of the time it's like they're so strong, you're kind of like, maybe I need depending on how you drink your beer. But anyway, it's been a good one. It's been good for the conversation, and there you go.
All right. Well, let's wrap this one up. We've been going a little bit long-ish, not long, but long-ish. Do you got something out of the gate, or should I stumble my way through?
Let me wrap it up and for my side, and then you go.
All right.
Okay. You started the year. Maybe you set some resolutions. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you set some because you think, okay, I'm going to resolve this stuff and it's going to make my life better or whatever. Like, just look at the why. Why do you even do it? Why do you set it? What's the intention? Because look, the why and the intention, it's probably not going to change all that much. And the nice thing about intention is that intention isn't tied into your plan. So like, you don't know how you're going to get what you're always after. So like right now, for example, if you said like, I'm going to go to the gym every day and I'm going to work out and get fit, look, you can get fit in more ways than going to the gym. So maybe it's not about going to the gym. Maybe it's not so literal. Maybe it's not so direct. And I would look at terms of like, look, if you're going to abandon the gym, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to get fit. You might just find a new way or a new approach or whatever, you know? And you might be surprised at how things come to you. So just like look at it in terms of like, here's what I want to do and here's why I want to do it. And then if anything honors that, and I'm talking anything, then just do it, embrace it. You know, I did a job, this was a couple years ago, while I was kind of on my like self-finding mission of just like, I'm going to try some different things and do whatever. But I worked this like Joe job thing and I had to set shelves in like PetSmarts and, you know, stores like that. And these shelves, you like lift them up and you put them in. And anyway, I just embraced it. I had to move like dog food and cat food around. It was like a very like kind of like manual labor type of job. And I was just like, I'm just going to embrace this job as a exercise. And I got so fit. I got so cut. Like I was just ripped and my shoulders were just bulking out. And, you know, like when I took my shirt off, I was like really happy about it. And I wasn't going to the gym. I was just making my job, my exercise. So my point is that you can get whatever you want, but sometimes the universe doesn't give it to you in a way that you think you're supposed to get it. So I would just remain open, remain flexible. And if I can say one last thing, Evan, I would say this I've probably said this before, but I'll say it again. Guys, bet on yourselves. Like, look, just bet on you, you know, give yourself a chance, you know, like life's a gamble. Dreams are a gamble. Going for what you really want is a gamble. You don't know if you're going to get it. And look, if you fail a few times, don't make that personal. Don't take that like some knock against you. You're learning, you're figuring out what works and you're figuring out what doesn't, and you're figuring out what you can use and what isn't usable. And it's all just gathering information, evolving, adapting, improvising. So bet on you, you know, give yourself a little bit of credit. You can be creative, you can improvise, you can adapt, you can evolve, you can, you know, you can make things work for you as opposed to you always working for them. And, you know, and like those resolutions are very real, but like the plan, the approach might change. Everything is flexible. Everything is always in flux. Everything is dynamic, and most things are always dynamic and moving. So you move, you adapt, you play, be present. There you go.
Nice.
Yeah.
My last thoughts on this are, you know, keep digging, dig deeper. Maybe you've already got some things that you've set out for yourself, some resolutions that you've made. Just try digging in a little bit deeper into, okay, well, why that? Why that? This is a fun little exercise. You know, you can write that down. It's like, okay, now why that? Write down why that? Why that? Keep going until you can go no further. You know, and you'll have a sense of really where this is all coming from. What it is that you actually are trying to do. It doesn't mean that you have to necessarily throw it away, but now you might have a deeper connection to what it is that you're trying to do. And one that is hopefully, again, a little bit more dynamic, like you are. One that is, you can move forward with an intention, with a way of moving through your life and creating things in your life that can evolve with you, you know, that can adjust to the different changes and create something even more that's beyond just that, you know, some simple initial goal that you could get stuck on, that, you know, could come very easily and quickly and leave you with nothing left to do. Dig deeper and you will almost certainly find that there is something very real, something very alive. There is, as you said, Brandon, that spark. There's an ember there for you to see. And who knows how much of a fire that ember could start with, not just in some small part of your life, but in your entire life. Thank you for listening in on our conversation today. We hope you found something helpful that you can carry forward with you. Head over to our website, wayoftheartist.com, for more free exclusive material and learn about the show. If you haven't already, please support us by subscribing to the show, sharing it with people you know, and keeping compassionate, creative conversation going.